A week before the release of Wilds, I made a video discussing the qualities of a good hunt, and how that can be related to the speed at which you complete a hunt. I listed 5 categories representing the different levels of skill or knowledge, and the clear times that you can see for each category. This list is based on the average times of Iceburn and Sunbreak. But what if I told you that for Wilds, this list looks like this? Let's not forget that Monster Hunter Wilds has, as of the date of this video, been out for just over a week. So how do we explain this? In another video I made, I discussed how borrowed power can affect the gameplay of a game by drastically changing the limits of what is possible and what is not. And we can already see how this is manifesting in Monster Hunter Wilds. It is known by now that every Monster Hunter title tries to incorporate some new mechanic or gameplay element that helps to refresh the design behind the combat. Things like the Slinger, the Mantles, the Palamutes and the Wirebugs are some examples of things that were not really present before the 5th generation of the franchise. And some of them have carried over to Wilds, while others were not really compatible. What I want to discuss today is the tremendous impact that the main new mechanic is causing, both for good and for bad, and how this can be the culprit behind the general perception about this game being the easiest of the whole franchise. Let's do an overview of the new mechanics before we dive into the details. Focus mode is a new mechanic that allows you to aim your attacks when fighting a monster. It will not only allow you to target specific parts of the monster more easily, but it will heavily overcorrect your attack trajectory even when you're facing away from the monster. Attacks that had really narrow angles of adjustment can now be redirected almost freely, to the point that you can do complete 180 turns even after you have started your attack animation. Focus mode interacts with another new mechanic known as wounds. Basically, as you attack the monster, you'll see these red markings appearing on them. When you turn on focus mode, these markings will be more noticeable as they glow red, and you can perform a focus attack to break the wound. This usually deals some decent damage, it allows some weapons to manage their resources, and in many cases, it causes what is known as a part break. We'll discuss why this is important in a second. As a not so advertised mechanic of focus mode, we have something that, for lack of a better term, I will call a focus counter. A lot of monsters in this game will perform special attacks that usually display the full weight of their might or the ingenuity of their cunning. Many of these attacks, sometimes during the animation or right after, will display the distinctive red glow that wounds have, even though there might not be any wounds on them in that moment. This allows the hunter to go for a focus attack that will, quite frequently, stagger the monster or sometimes even topple it, making it easier for you to make yourself more openings during the fight. I will say that this is a very intelligent way to keep an aspect of a previous mechanic that we had seen in Monster Hunter Iceborne. The Clutch Claw and its ability to wallbang monsters was something that could really help you to put some good damage when you were having difficulties finding openings. So now, with Focus Counter, we can punish the monster and create an opening if we've managed to react to or avoid some of their more powerful attacks. All of these qualities I've mentioned come from a single mechanic. And to be quite fair and objective, Focus Mode has done wonders in terms of accessibility, making positioning and aiming incredibly more manageable for new and casual players, and it makes intermediate level players have a much easier time polishing their skills and improving overall. And yes, here we have to say, however, we are starting to see a trend in higher levels of play where the interactions between a monster and the hunter are being completely taken over by the player's ability to abuse this mechanic in combination with their experience and monster knowledge. Not only that, but before this, the commitment that you had to take with every attack used to be measured by the length of your animation and the accuracy of your positioning, and now the latter is almost unimportant in the equation. Remember how I said that breaking a monster's parts is important? Part breaking is one of the first and probably most satisfying mechanics that Monster Hunter has created. What starts as a fun little mechanic to slice tails and get more rewards from a hunt quickly transforms into a brilliant source of feedback to the player that will reward smart play and knowledge. Breaking certain parts of the monster can make them topple. It can even mess up with their balance or make them more likely to trip, and in some cases, it will decrease the power of some of their attacks. Keep in mind that all of these interactions can happen from simply targeting a specific part of the monster. And for as simple as it is, it offers a level of depth to the gameplay that is truly breathtaking. It rewards those who pay attention to these details and who practice good positioning. But it can also present you with the following dilemma. What if the part of the monster that I am attacking is a terrible way to deal damage to the monster? Will it really pay off once it breaks? The answer to that is, it depends. Take Barioth, for example. To many people, one of the walls of Iceborne's progression. Agile, fast, and extremely aggressive, it really feels like an unfair encounter the first time around. But then, you manage to get a part break on his legs. Suddenly, the fight's momentum completely shifts. You see a Barioth stumbling around, struggling to find its footing, and you can start exploiting many of these opportunities. This one part break gave you insane value in this fight. Then what about Anjanath? Another monster that you can topple by targeting a part break on the legs, but it takes a bit more effort to do it, and he doesn't stay on the ground for too long when it happens. On the other hand, hitting him on the head can stagger him, and when he is supercharged, you can get a really big topple, making it a more desirable option even when it can be riskier. So, should I go for the legs or the head? When we analyze the design behind this simple yet beautifully executed mechanic, we can realize how part breaking gives the hunter so many opportunities to make meaningful decisions across all levels of play. But they must be accompanied by good positioning and execution. And guess what mechanic in Wilds is making those two things extremely forgiving? Not only that, but it allows you to do something that was only possible if you had exceptionally sharp awareness of the monster's part break threshold, and that is controlling the moment that the part breaks. Before Wilds, part breaks would happen when you dealt enough damage to a specific part of the monster. Every monster has different thresholds, not only between monsters, but between the parts of one given monster as well. This way, Barioth's arm might take, say, 300 damage before they break, and his tail might take 500 damage. The caveat here is that we cannot really know these values because in Monster Hunter, you don't get to see the monster's HP. So it's only after intensive practice and repetition that players start to develop a sort of intuition as to when these part breaks are going to trigger. And when this happens is when you start to see people demolishing these monsters. But in Wilds, you don't need that level of experience in order to do this. You have visual indicators for when a part is breakable thanks to wounds. And you get to decide when the part breaks uncontested. Because, yeah, something that we didn't mention about focus attacks is that when you land them on a wound, the monster will simply stand there in animation lock, waiting for you to finish the attack. In fact, you were just seeing a very simple example of this. The clip you were watching now was me fighting low-rank Ray Dao. I have no relevant gear, no relevant armor skills, nothing. Did you notice how many times I staggered, stunned, toppled and knocked him out? The moment I had an opening, he couldn't even stand properly anymore. And this is not to say that I'm like really good, I don't think I'm very good at this game. But the point I'm trying to make here is that now anyone can do this type of thing. Sometimes even accidentally. And before you jump to conclusions, I'm not on the side of people that complain because the game is too easy and it's being dumbed down or anything. I'm showing you this because I think this creates a different kind of problem that can ultimately hurt the game. What has focus mode created? Well, I think what we have here is a version of the game where the hunter has never had so much control over the fight before. Let's just take a look at how many tactics we can use when we hunt. We can break specific parts. This can topple the monster. We can focus attack to animation lock the monster. We can stun the monster with KO damage. We can blind the monster using flashpoint. We can immobilize the monster by using not one, but two types of traps. We can paralyze the monster, we can sleep the monster, we can mount the monster. This can also topple it. And to top it all off, we can focus counter the monster's special attacks. And this is not even considering offsets, clashes, and ambushes. They usually have a lesser effect, but can stagger the monster nonetheless. And you might say like, oh, come on son, who even uses all these tactics when they hunt? Well, you would be surprised. There's a certain paralyzed charge blade that has become very popular as of late. And the rise of the blunt damage type Kinsect has taken the Insect Glaive speedruns by storm. Not only that, but Sleep Greatsword is making the biggest comeback ever seen. You can see where this goes, right? Weapons are having too many options to hinder the monster's movements. And while these mechanics have existed for a long time, now they work together in tandem with focus mode and its applications. And we haven't even mentioned multiplayer yet. The reason why I think this is a problem is because it really takes away from the monster's ability to confront you. With how many resources and mechanics you can use in your favor, it really seems that this version of the hunter is the strongest there is. Even the story tries to give you that idea. However, they are probably too strong. I cannot help but feel that focus mode and all its applications need a nerf. But it might be too late for that. Because, I'm not gonna lie, the fact that an average player like me can pull off crowd-controlled strings so easily now feels so good. But I don't think I should be able to do them so frequently and effortlessly. Again, I think focus mode is doing wonders for accessibility. It is my favorite borrowed power of them all, and it is probably the best way to show players through gameplay that these layers of complexity exist, because it makes you interact with them even if you don't know what's going on. And again, like, please, this is not me trying to support the argument that the game is too easy, because the only ones that can pick up on these things are experienced players that have interacted with these mechanics. But I am sure that there are many people who are either new or don't really care about optimizing the game to such degree that are most likely very appreciative of having these resources. Removing focus mode or wounds is not really a solution because it would be a disaster. Nobody would ever be happy again because we have it too good with it. People who know how strong it is have no reason to play with the old controls anymore. They are almost 100% of the time in focus mode, dipping out of it only to make adjustments in the moveset of their weapon. The problem is not that we have focus mode. The problem is that we have too much of it. I think that if you could limit the amount of time that you spend on focus mode, maybe giving you a focus bar that starts to run out when you activate it, but it can recover when you attack the monster outside focus mode. This would incentivize people to be more careful with the way they use it. I think wounds and focus counters should be more limited too. They should probably have an internal cooldown to avoid having this weird interaction where the monster is just sitting there waiting for you to do your thing. And instead, if you go for a wound break for a second time in a row, yeah, you can still do the attack, but the monster will retain its freedom to slap you around. Or maybe having focus attack charges. That way you have to be more mindful as to which part you want to use it on. And it could even solve the problem of people fighting over wounds in multiplayer. I genuinely think these are good alternatives, but they could never be implemented on the game by now. People would riot! Insect Glaive would become useless. And so we go back to the problem of borrowed power. When these new systems are too good and too ingrained in the game's mechanics, how can you expect to change them, let alone remove them, without causing a massive uproar? Certainly a very interesting dilemma for game developers, and most definitely a discussion that I would like to explore more. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear from all types of players, new, casual, veteran, old, intermediate, speedrunner, all of them. What has been your experience with this new tool? Would you be willing to accept a nerf to this mechanic? Is there any other solutions? Anyway, just something that's been on my mind lately. If you liked the video, I would really appreciate it if you did any of the things that you can see on this picture. I'm really trying to grow the channel, and I'm definitely trying to put on the work so that happens. As always, my name is Sun, and until next time.